Welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports, and we're going to continue our whip around the NFL as we hurtle towards week one and the start of the regular season. We covered the NFC North in the last episode. We're going to jump conferences and cover the AFC North. So, Tim, are you ready to go?
Let's run it. Head over to the AFC.
Let's do it. Starting with the Baltimore Ravens. Last season, they made the playoffs as a wild card, but lost at Cincinnati. A large part of that was due to the loss of Lamar Jackson. He missed a lot of last year, including the playoffs, but now he's back and he's healthy. Don't get me wrong, Tyler Huntley held down the fort well and somehow made the Pro Bowl, but he's not Lamar Jackson. He's not a former MVP, and that's going to be a big, big boost to the Ravens. And I think that's the most important part of, the team between last season and this season.
Oh, 100%. I mean, he is the biggest difference maker on that team. Baltimore is 45-16 when he's part of the lineup and 8-13 when he's sidelined. So the fact that they were even able to still hang on to be able to make the playoffs was one thing. But you always wonder what it would have been, whether or not he would have been healthy. So that's going to be their biggest, issue is, can they keep him healthy? Because obviously we've seen in the past with quarterbacks that do run a lot, what their sort of limits look like as their career goes on. And we're hoping that Lamar is a guy that, given the fact that he is able to throw the ball pretty well, and they're starting to give him some more weapons now. Like you've got Odell, you've got Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman. Obviously, they're still waiting for him to really flourish.
And Nelson Aguilar.
Everybody's favorite. But they're looking to reconnect that connection between him and Mark Andrews. So they've got their guys now. It's a matter of keeping them healthy. Their offensive side of the ball should look like a well-oiled machine. Hopefully J.K. Dobbins can really show up. But overall, I think as long as they're able to stave off the injury bug, this should still be a very solid Ravens team like we have seen in the past.
Yeah, and that's always the million-dollar question. Can the guy stay healthy? For the most part, the answer has been no, but you have a few key guys coming back.
Every year is different.
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins is mostly healthy. He's recovering from that knee injury, but, will he finally be back to full health? I don't know. Either way, you have a plethora of running backs behind him, like Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, that have proven they could be more than capable of filling the void. Their bread and butter is that run game, the option game with Lamar Jackson and whatever running back is in there. But you said it, the passing game is going to be a little bit more open. You mentioned the weapons that they added. And now
we've been waiting on them, and they finally did something.
The offense will look a little more two-dimensional and not so run reliant. You can't exactly stack the box anymore on them. And Zay Flowers has looked really good through,
he's
the Ravens
pretty electric, dude.
Yeah, he is. And he was selected like after Jackson Smith and Jigma, Quentin Johnson. Like he was right in
that stretch there of those
in that
wide
run
receivers.
of like those four wide receivers. Yeah. I mean, at least right now, Zay Flowers looks like the best of them. And I mean, is it too far of a stretch to say that he'll be the wide receiver one by the end of the season? Like jumping Odell Beckham, jumping Rashad Bateman. I think here's the thing. Very possible.
It's very possible because Odell Beckham Jr., he's not getting any younger. He's not getting any flashier. I think he's going to start a little bit turning into one of those receivers where he's a bit more reliant on his hands than he is his legs sort of to get open. Obviously, he has some of the best hands in the league. There's no doubt about that. But can his legs hold up? Can he continue to get himself in positions to essentially find the ball in his hands? Now, Zay Flowers, I mean, he's going to be electric. I think he has the opportunity to be everything that we were hoping Rashad Bateman could turn himself into. And Bateman still has the chance, but he hasn't quite shown that spark.
One. Yeah, no.
Yeah, he hasn't quite shown that spark.
And I'm a little bit disappointed in that because I thought Rashad Bateman was going to be really good. But,
he still has the chance. He just and I'm hoping that maybe with some of the now competition at the wide receiver position, that maybe that will, spark some extra, some extra work, some extra dimension in his game.
I'm sure Nelson Aguilar is pushing him real hard.
Yeah, Nelson Aguilar, wide receiver one, for all we know. Who knows?
Oh goodness!
But they have the depth in this team, both now in the offense. They have had some changes to their defense.
Yeah,
so
that's
how
that's
that
a little
will
interesting
turn out.
Yeah,
I
because you
still
lost
think,
a lot of veterans. I mean, Calais
yeah,
Campbell's with the Falcons, Justin Houston signed with the Panthers, Marcus Peters went to the Raiders, and Chuck Clark signed with the Jets. So that's, I mean, the Ravens are known for their defense. That's kind of been their identity throughout their history as the
I think they'll
Ravens.
find guys that will step up, but
They
you
probably
definitely lose
will.
some key, like you talk about, not only just the veterans and their experience, but also their veteran leadership. Um, I've been very impressed with how Justin Houston has been, despite his age and his ability to just find his way into the backfield at times. But we'll see, how guys
Hmm.
fill in, whether or not they can, you know, fill some of that void. Very interested to see what Roquan Smith will look like in his full first season with the Ravens. Can he keep up essentially the type of dominance in the middle of the field like he established himself with the Bears,
The
or
answer is
will he
going
be
to be
used a
yes.
little bit?
The
It's
answer,
just, I think it's a matter of how he's
I
used. Will they use
I
him more
vote
as a pass
yes
rusher?
because mainly shout out Combat Wombat in your local Whitestown Meyer, future champion, and Roquan Smith was a very high draft pick of mine. So I
Yes,
mean,
he's
playing
a
fantasy
fantastic.
football in a league with defensive players is going to be very, very interesting. Shout out the lads
Yes,
in your local Whitestown Meyer
IDP.
and big jeans.
Yes, Big Jeans is looking to defend his slash their title
His
in that
slash
league. But
there.
doing a fantasy football league with IDP is really cool. It's really interesting. You have to look at a whole,
Oh,
another dimension of
I
stats. But
highly recommend it.
I
However,
definitely think we will get into that at some point. But now
oh,
is
we
not the time.
absolutely will. But I will say, just a disclaimer, if you do it, make sure your league commissioner accurately predicts how long the draft is going to take. I'm just saying because
Don't do 35 rounds.
oh my goodness, 20 bench slots. Good golly, Miss Molly. Anyway, back to the Baltimore Ravens. They're one
Yes.
of the teams that I'm not going to bet against. They're going to find a way to get it done. That culture that they've built and the template that they have, I have them going 11-6 and making the playoffs. And even in a very tight AFC, there's no reason why they shouldn't. There's a ton of talent on this Ravens team, so I think they'll go right back.
Again, I feel the only reason why they will could be the wrong injuries, and that's essentially what they faced, and it's a risk you have to take. And I can't necessarily say I can predict injuries, so I'm not going to predict they fall short because of injuries. So I have
Mm-hmm.
them going 12-5 and filling up the 5 seed in the AFC. Like you said, super competitive, and that 12-5 is at your 5 seed, but. They absolutely have the talent. They have the electricity on offense, and I still think they will have enough on defense to, have enough of a well-oiled machine all around to beat a lot of those teams that they have on their schedule this year.
Next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals, who have quickly turned themselves into title contenders, and there's no reason why they shouldn't remain title contenders. Last year, losing in the AFC Championship to the Kansas City Chiefs was a little rough, but if there's any team that rivals the Chiefs pretty consistently, it's Joe Burrow and the Bengals. So they'll get right back to another shot at it. Just the question entering week one is going to be about Joe Burrow's calf. He
Yeah.
may or may not be ready, but they'll need him to be truly 100% back to normal and healthy, because I'm of the opinion that even a dinged up Joe Burrow is not a 100% Joe Burrow. And like,
Oh, for sure.
even if like a Hall of Fame quarterback, like, oh gosh, I don't know, Aaron Rodgers decides to tough it out, he might not look nearly as good as advertised, and the team might
Yeah.
fall flat because of it. So I definitely think Joe Burrow needs to be 100%. This is largely the same core as the past 2 seasons, so not much is that different. They didn't make any major changes except for the signing of Orlando Brown to protect the blind side. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
The secondary looks a little bit different without Jesse Bates. They brought in Nick Scott from the Rams to replace him. I guess the main narrative is
Hey, don't forget they got rid of Eli Apple.
addition by subtraction, taking a bite out of the
I see
wrong
this as an
apple.
absolute win.
I'm sure a lot of Bengals fans do, but the main narrative
Yeah.
surrounding them this year is just finish the job, get to the Super Bowl, and this time win it.
Yeah. You talk about that injury going into week one. Everything right now points towards him being on track, but a calf injury is one of those that you have to be careful with because it is relatively easy to re-injure. And you saw that when he injured it, it wasn't a contact injury. It was literally him just trying to escape the pocket in a drill in training camp. So they definitely want to be careful with it. I think he will be back for week 1. Do I think he will be as mobile as he usually is? Maybe not. I think maybe he might, there might be some hesitation just to, try to do some of those, like that play extending rather than, just take the throw it away type shots. But like you said, this team, they still have all the weapons that they need. Again, you got to protect Joe Burrow. That's still going to be enemy number 1, is making sure that offensive line can hold up. But they've got all the weapons. I personally, obviously, am very curious to see if there will be any significant role or even role at all for Charlie Jones, wide receiver out of Purdue, selected in the 4th round. Obviously,
This isn't
joining
even
an
a
already
college
very
basketball
competitive
episode, and you're making
I'll
connections
still
back to
find a
Purdue.
way.
Oh
I'll
dear,
still find a way.
this isn't even a
But
college hoops
obviously
episode, man.
It's already a very competitive wide receiver room. So I can't imagine a lot at least. But I'm still curious. I think he has the ability to have a positive effect on that offense. But you talk about the addition of Orlando Brown. Man, I hope it does something, because their previous additions have, helped a little bit, I guess. But I don't feel like Lyle Collins had made that much of a difference thus far. But hopefully Orlando Brown on the blind
him
side
to be
should.
better. They definitely expected him to be better than he was. But now you get a big name blindside blocker that you paid a lot of money, even more than Lyle Collins. So he'll have to deliver.
This should, and the goal for this is that to be the difference maker in that offensive line. The blind side, obviously, for right-handed quarterbacks, that left tackle is so important, because that's where you can really get surprised and hit really bad on some of those, depending on the play.
I mean, unless you're the Dolphins, then your right tackle is most important.
Yes, obviously, left-handed quarterbacks are a different story, but a lot of quarterbacks in this league
Tebow.
He's long gone. But I truly believe, again, that the Bengals, you keep all your guys healthy, they are going to be competing once again for an AFC championship. They have the spark. They have that. I don't know what it is about them, whether even when they are not underdogs, it
is the underdog mentality.
I don't know what it is about those Cincy boys, but they just kind of have that natural chip on their shoulder.
Well, they're the Bengals, and everybody counts them out, because every time they've gotten to the Super Bowl or close to it,
they haven't gotten over that hump.
They've fallen up short. I mean, it's the lovable losers label that you can see not just in football but around sports, that gives the team the extra kind of just edge. But the thing about that label is, once you win a championship, then you become like every other team. No, you become like every other team in sports, and that underdog.
I'm saying, can you keep that edge? Essentially,
no.
Once you
absolutely not. No. That's not how that works. Because I hate to change sports a little bit, but the Chicago Cubs had the lovable loser label, and then they won in 2016, and then they just kind of became another team.
Well, the difference between being a champion and being a dynasty is that consistency, and whether you're able to keep that, mantra around your club, regardless of what sport it is.
Yeah, I think the fact, though, that we're talking about Cincinnati as like championship contenders is kind of wild, just given their history, thus reinforcing the underdog narrative. However, with Joe Burrow's calf, noted lower body injury specialist Tim Giannini, you will tell us way better than I would about what that details. I haven't hurt my legs as much as you have in my lifetime, so you would know far better than I would. Well, you know what? I don't pray that on my worst enemy. Like Joe Burrow, did you tear? Was that a broken leg or a torn ACL? I forget.
Me?
Yes, you.
Partially torn meniscus, not ACL, so not nearly as bad as the ACL, or like even a
no. I'm talking about long time ago. That was a broken leg.
Long time ago, I broke my leg. I had a essentially a compound fracture. I fractured, I believe it was the tibia all the way through.
Lower body injury specialist Tim Giannini through experience. So Tim,
it's been a while,
you'll keep us updated on the Joe Burrow
Yes,
However that
absolutely.
goes. So we both have them as Super Bowl contenders. I have them at 12-5, winning the division. Tim, you have them at 13-4. We'll see if the
Also at the
Bengals
top of
can
the division.
finish the job, but we got to keep
Yeah.
it moving. And we got two more teams. Another lovable loser brand, the Cleveland Browns. They are in
Oh,
an interesting position. They are
yeah.
continuing to put their
Are
chips
they
in.
that lovable anymore? I
Uh,
gotta be honest, they don't feel nearly as lovable as they used to be.
well, they're Cleveland's, so Cleveland loves them like no other.
It's not
Um,
even really about the team or like the location. It's more of the fact that they're like Kareem Hunt, Deshaun Watson, which Kareem Hunt is now gone, but they have now a little
okay,
bit of a
yeah,
history
all
of
right.
bring in some of
Well,
the
Tim,
more controversial players.
when you lose that much, I guess you lose your
Well, guess what?
sense of moral compass.
It hasn't worked
No,
out for them
no, it
that well so
hasn't.
far.
Is it going to work out for them? I don't know, but they definitely swung big in free agency again. But this was mainly defense focused by bringing in big names and depth pieces such as Dalvin Tomlinson, Zadarius Smith, Juan Thornhill, Rodney McLeod, and others. But this is going to be Deshaun Watson's show. His first full season back in
Gonna
the
be
NFL.
it's gonna be his judgment day, really.
It
I think
really
it's gonna
is.
be it's can he step back up to the caliber that he was, or are we going to continue to see sort of the husk of Deshaun Watson that we knew? Can he get that confidence back? Can he get essentially that accuracy back that he just hasn't really shown since coming back?
Mhm.
I don't know. It's really difficult to tell. I have to say I'm not that high on them. I don't see them having like this magical
I
resurgence, and
mean,
maybe it's just because the
who
overall
knows?
weapons that they're working with.
I mean, it is the Browns.
Maybe the addition of Elijah Moore can allow him to have some type of breakout. Maybe
I know
obviously
they feel confident about the weapons in Cleveland. I mean, Amari Cooper has said that him and Elijah Moore can form a great 1-2 tandem. You got Nick Chubb and a pretty
I
good
mean you gotta
offensive
believe
line.
that when it's you.
But this is
They gotta go
Deshaun
do it
Watson's
first.
show.
They can talk as much as they want.
It's Deshaun Watson's show, and he's going to need to force his way back to national prominence, if you will.
Mm-mm. No. Yeah, no, he's going to be the deciding factor because obviously we know full well in this league that the only way you succeed is by starting with
I'm keeping that joke in,
the
by the
quarterback
way.
position. I don't doubt it. But yeah, the
Funny
thing
in
is
my
going to
head.
be I think they could have like a 3-4 game swing just based on the fact of what version of Deshaun Watson you see.
Oh, I'm sure they could.
Because I very much believe there'll be another team that kind of steals a game or two that you really don't think that they should win, but then loses a couple that they probably should win just because of the fact that I don't see a whole lot of consistency. I feel like Nick Chubb, you're probably going to have another top 5 running back season out of him. He's just a complete and total workhorse. Your defense, again, some of it's going to be keeping guys healthy. Like Myles Garrett had a couple of different injury stuff on and off last year. He's obviously a huge part of that defense. The additions should
And
provide,
big, big,
like you
big, big,
said, a
big
lot more
jeans.
depth. Absolutely. But it's going to be can they find that consistency that they haven't
Mm-hmm.
quite found? And part of it, I'm at least willing to look at is what kind of leash do you keep this current coaching staff on? Because they've kind of
Yeah.
been borderline trying to build something, and Stefanski has gotten them about as far as they have been in the foreseeable, not foreseeable, that's future, recent memory. But the problem is they've been stuttering. They had something kind of good going on with Baker, and then they
They
hit the
forced
rocks,
him
and
out.
they're trying to do sort of the let's shift focus and keep trying to push. But if they have
Mm-hmm.
another mediocre to kind of significantly subpar season, what do you do with this coaching staff?
That's an excellent question. Um, I don't know because how do you measure success in a conference that is as stacked as
Yeah,
the AFC?
they've got the
Because
cards stacked
this is
against them pretty
truly
hard.
going to be running the gauntlet, and in the AFC North in particular, I can see 3 playoff teams. I don't think that's too unreasonable.
It's not too unreasonable. It's unreasonable for me because I
Well,
am waiting on Mike Tomlin's downfall.
yes, you are. I mean, I am of the opinion that Mike Tomlin's going to figure it out. I mean, more on them later because we have to talk about the Steelers next. But right now, we're on the Browns, and
Yes.
I mean,
I mean,
Tim,
I'll say
have
I personally have them going 1-5 in division, and that's the problem. If you can't win
yeah,
games in your division,
you
you're
have
not
to
going to make the
win
playoffs.
in your division, and I mean, you have them going 6-11 overall. I have them going 8-9,
Again,
which isn't going to cut
that's
it.
that's one of those things where it's like I do have them at 6-11, but depending on the version of Deshaun Watson that you see, you could very easily see 8-9. You could even see them creeping towards 9-8. But I have a
I think
little
that's
bit
about where
more
the
of a
ceiling
pessimistic
stops.
outlook. But yeah, I think that's about where the ceiling stops for them, just because of the nature of strength of schedule and strength of their division.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how this thing turns out. I mean, can the Browns make the playoffs again? Which, who knows?
The problem is with the way, and we will continue talking about this. We have been talking about this, but with the way that the AFC is currently comprised of these playoff teams with young stud quarterbacks, unless they find their stud, unless Deshaun Watson turns back into the stud he was, or they move on from him
But
and
that's
find
just
somebody.
oh goodness, no,
they're going to find a
They're not
hard.
moving in from like Deshaun Watson's contract
I mean,
is
the contract, yeah,
far far too large. It
they're
kind of
kind of
reminds
ride
me
or
of the
die on him now.
situation with Arizona and Kyler Murray because if that crashes and burns, do you draft Caleb Williams even though you just signed Kyler Murray to an extension and have him paid like a
I don't
top
know if
5
you can
quarterback?
offload that contract, but again,
I don't.
another conversation for
Yeah,
later.
exactly. We'll
But
get to the
that's the
NFC
thing.
West.
Deshaun is in that same
You're gonna
situation where
ride with Deshaun, and like if you
you
look at
don't have much
the
of a
other
choice.
teams, Baltimore fairly confident they'll get in. Cincinnati even more confident that they'll get in, and then you have Cleveland and Pittsburgh, and it's like, eh.
Let's just say it would take some very
fortuitous
fortunate
bounces.
yes, kind of like what you saw out of the Vikings winning 1-score games last year. That kind of situation. That's what it
You
would
know how I
take.
feel about the Vikings.
Yes, exactly. So we could see something that would sort of blow all of our minds. I personally don't see it because I don't think they have the right recipe yet. They're moving in the right direction, especially their additions should.
It'll help.
Yes, their additions should help. You got to stay the course, but when do you start questioning whether or not the guys at the helm are the right guys to do it? Because the one situation that I have to point towards, obviously it wasn't like a long tenure or anything, but look at the shift that the Jaguars have made. Under the right system, under the right guy, you bring in the right guy to build, your team around, and Doug Peterson has largely turned around the Jaguars in just that one season, and I personally think that they will continue to build on that. So, do you trust in Kevin Stefanski and his staff?
At least for this season, the Browns don't really have a choice.
I don't see them. I will say I don't see them making a coaching change midseason. This doesn't seem like a season for them to do that. Will they make a decision after the season? Maybe. Something tells me not really, but
I doubt it. Unless they crash and burn, I think they're going to stick with it unless they crash and burn.
I think it's
which is also in the realm of possibility,
to,
by the way.
It is, but I think it's going to be a question that upper management has to start asking themselves.
Mm-hmm. And last, but certainly not least, in the AFC North, we're going to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Mike Tomlin did it again, even though, Tim, you picked them to finish well below 500. They found a way to have a winning record at 9-8.
Still don't believe it.
Well, you don't have to believe
I'm waiting
it because
for it.
They're getting it done. And who knows? Will he keep the trend going or will he crash and burn like Tim, you think? But I think it starts with Sir Kenneth Pickett. He is settling in as the full-time starting quarterback.
You want to know where it starts? It starts with Matt Canada at offensive coordinator. To me, that's where it starts.
Well, there's only so much he could do from the sidelines on the field. You got to have the
Yes, and
guys
there's
to
also
execute the game
only so
plan.
many ways that he can, force them into their own downfall. I don't think he's a good OC, but
No, I don't think
that's here nor there.
I don't think he's a good OC either. However, you know, it's Kenny Pickett's show in Pittsburgh, and we'll see. Can he take the next step to being a legit starting QB in this league? There are some people that are on the fence. Some people are on one side where they think he's a bust. Well, I don't want to speak for you.
No, I'm pretty purely on the fence sort of route because I saw enough out of him last year for me to not think that the Steelers
game-winning
are
drives. He had like 3 or 4.
Yes, but I also don't know if I see enough out of his. I would call it the intangibles, maybe sort of the mindset, I guess. I don't know if he
is this about him wearing gloves?
No, I don't care at all about him wearing gloves, but I have not seen, and maybe it's a confidence factor of him making the big time throws when he needs to make a difference in those close big games. But the other thing about this team is, I know you and I have both had the sentiment in the past, and I still stay on the sentiment. I am not a fan of Najee Harris. He's just a very inefficient runner. And I think that they need to find a way to utilize him better or get him to, I guess maybe read things better and stop trying to make so many, horizontal movements and just get the ball up the field more. But I think that is also some of the limitations on their offense right now.
It definitely helped that they drafted a bunch of offensive linemen, though. They brought in some guys that can help. They used first-round pick on Broderick Jones, a big left tackle. They brought in Isaac Samalo from the Eagles. He was a big part of the best offensive line in football. So a good offensive line helps mask a lot of problems, namely giving Kenny Pickett time to throw and Najee Harris space to run. So
space for him to think that he can go forward rather than trying to make everybody miss left and right. Because to me, that's his biggest issue. He's trying to be too fancy. Sometimes he has to remember that he's big enough that he's a power back. He doesn't need to be an elusive back. Just go through people.
Just do the thing and don't try to do too much. I think where the Steelers offense is really going to improve, barring Matt Canada being Matt Canada, is in the passing game, because that is a strength that the Steelers should utilize if Kenny Pickett can make the throws necessarily to get to the targets, because they have Deontay Johnson and George Pickens. They brought in Allen Robinson. Pat Freiermuth is a good pass-catching tight end. Najee Harris is a capable receiver. I don't know about
Allen Robinson anymore.
But Allen Robinson as your 3, it's not
that's not a bad wide receiver 3 whatsoever. We also saw what he was able to do, or the lack thereof, as basically a wide receiver 2 on the Rams last year.
The feature receiver when Cooper Kupp missed time.
To be fair, he also kind of felt when Cooper Kupp was there as a wide receiver 3, almost behind Van Jefferson. But I think the biggest thing for me is
Allen Robinson. Game. I remember when Bears fans thought he was so good.
Well, I mean, he did. He was for a while.
That's just me being a spiteful Packers fan. He was pretty decent on the Bears, but now that he's gone and now that he's elsewhere, he's bouncing around as like a veteran. But I think that's what they kind of need him to do, is just be a veteran, like a Jarvis Landry type, what you want Odell Beckham to be. So, I mean, they don't exactly need him to be the big name guy because you have 2 big time receivers in front of him.
No, the big thing is I would like, there's two main things with their 2 top receivers that I think are going to be the deciding factors on whether or not they have a truly solid or decent passing game. Can and will you get Deontay Johnson the ball outside of 5 to 7 yards? Or will you continue using him as a drag and slant and out route merchant? Also,
Not Michael Thomas.
Can you find him the ball in the red zone? He did not get
What are
a
you
receiving.
doing with what is Captain Hook doing?
Don't question it.
Why
But
what
can they find him
I
the ball in
don't
the red zone? He did
I
not
don't get
get a
it.
receiving touchdown last year. And for a guy of his caliber at receiver, for as many receptions as he got, I find that kind of crazy. And part of it is they utilize Najee a lot in the red zone. They use George Pickens a little bit more in the receiving game. They used Claypool a
Yeah, keep
little
in
bit
mind
more
what that
when he
Claypool
was
was
there.
around and they
Yes.
oh my goodness, it was awesome that they got the 32nd overall pick for Chase Claypool. The
Uh,
Steelers do it again.
yeah, no,
Or more
that
so
hurts my soul a little bit.
the Bears do it
Um,
again. Wah, wah.
yes, but the second thing there is, can you utilize George Pickens' vertical threat ability enough? Can you get Kenny Pickett to put the ball in the right spots to get George Pickens the ball down the field? Because he absolutely has the ability to
Oh,
be
for
that 15,
sure.
20-yard
For sure.
receiver threat. He has the hands, he has, the body control and just the general speed and moves to get himself open there. So I think if they are
Mhm.
able to utilize those guys a little bit more with a little bit more versatility, all of a sudden that opens your offense up a lot more. But I don't know if Matt Canada's going to do it. That's the
Is he gonna
problem.
do it? Is he really gonna do
I
it?
don't know.
Is he?
Which is why that I think their
Oh, geez.
success is capped with Matt Canada. I just don't think he's a good
Well,
play caller.
Tim, I think we got to move on to the defense because that is something that
Yes,
I really want to talk about. I like what they
I
do.
think their defense.
I like
I
what they
think
did
their
on
defense
defense.
has an opportunity for a big step up. I'm a big fan
Mhm.
of the addition of Cole Holcomb. I think he has a great
Oh yeah.
opportunity to be a real standalone guy in the middle of that defense. You talk about that addition in Patrick Peterson, um, edge Marcus Golden. I think he has an opportunity to make another effect. Although now they're edge rushers. I mean, they got edge rushers out the wazoo. I mean, I really like the emergence
And
of
see,
Alex
that's the
Highsmith on the
thing
outside.
because they made some awesome additions in free agency. And Pittsburgh is another defense that's really tough, punch you in the mouth. You had the combination of TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith on the edge, and they got a lot of big name guys, but they also really got a lot of veteran depth on the defense. Like you get Quan Alexander in there. You mentioned Cole Holcomb and Landon Roberts. Those are three really solid veteran linebackers. Patrick Peterson and Chandon Sullivan. And behind Minkah Fitzpatrick, you get DeMonte KZ and Keanu Neal. So,
Yeah.
and not to mention that cornerback room has some young guys, Joey Porter and Tim.
Oh, hey, yeah, Corey Trice.
Come on. That took you way too long.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I did kind of forget that he ended up with the Steelers. He's one of those guys where
Oh my goodness.
I believe
Tim,
he's 6'3".
I throw you the alley oop and you like pause before you go up and jump and dunk it.
I gotta keep y'all in suspense here, but here's the thing for me,
No, you
I don't
don't. You just
know.
missed it.
I to be honest though, I do not know how much of a role Corey Trice will find in this cornerback room.
Yeah,
He's
probably
got
not
the
much right away.
He's got the size. He's not your quickest guy, so he has the opportunity to get burned by the wrong receiver. But I think he has the ability to, if he continues working on different parts of his game, really emerge himself as a solid. Because his height, that's something you can't teach. But
No, can you teach me to be taller, Tim?
no, I can't say I have. As someone who has grown about 3/4 of an inch in the last like 7 years, no, I don't think I can.
Dang it.
Um, but I really like what this
It's
defense can
funny
turn
because I'm
into.
just as tall as you are.
Exactly. But I mean,
Neither one
we
of us
saw
are short. It's just
flashes.
funny.
No, we saw flashes out of this
Love my
defense
short kings
last
though.
year that had that really put them in a solid place, and I think they've done nothing short of just shoring up and getting better in just about every position. Can you keep TJ Watt healthy? Because obviously, I mean, we talk about the playmaker that he is, and as much as Alex Highsmith did great in his absence, you're putting those guys on both sides of the line. You're going to wreak some havoc on some offensive lines out there. I
Yeah.
personally, I loved what we saw out of Cole Holcomb last year before he got injured. I believe he was with Washington, if I'm not mistaken. He came from
He
Washington.
was. He was.
Yes.
Yeah, Cole
So
Holcomb
if
was
you
a typical commander.
yes, and
That is a
here's the
commander
thing,
no more.
and I think he can really command the center of this field because I think he is a great presence just
He's
in
a
the middle
true
there,
field
tackle
general.
machine. Yes, exactly. Which I think they could really use in the middle of that field. So we very well could see this defense be borderline top 5, top 7 in the league, I think, if
I
the
don't think
pieces fall
that's too
together
crazy.
correctly.
I really don't
I don't
think
think it
that's too
is.
crazy.
Can the offensive side of the ball
For
hold up their end of the bargain, though?
for overall standings predictions, Tim, you have that streak being snapped of consecutive winning seasons. I don't. They're gonna figure out a way to go 10-7, not make the
They
playoffs.
might.
But
I just, again, I don't. If they were
if
in
they
a
can
different
stay out
division,
of their own way, then I'd feel more
yes.
confident about them potentially being a wild card.
And again, same thing we said with Cleveland, though. If they were in a different division, I think they could thrive. But I again have them going. I have them going 2-4 in the division, which
Only
again
the
limits
Steelers were in
your.
the NFC South.
They would dominate down there.
Oh goodness, would they?
But to me, I think it's all going to come down to what pieces of the puzzle can you put together on the offensive side of the ball. Not worried about defense. I think defense should be pretty darn fine. But on offense, Najee's shown promises.
We'll see,
but
dude. We'll see. But that's all we got for our AFC North preview. Now we spent a little more time on some teams than others, but some teams in this league are just a little bit more interesting going into the season than
got a little
others.
bit more going on.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun to speculate about the bubble teams rather than like the Ravens and the Bengals. Oh, they're good, they'll get in.
Yeah, they should.
There's really not much to say there, but we will be continuing our run through each of the divisions leading up until kickoff of week 1. So stay tuned for that. If you want more from us, you can find us on YouTube and any platform that you get your podcasts at. You can find us there. We talk NBA, college basketball, NFL, MLB, pretty much anything you want, we'll deliver. So if you want more from us, like and subscribe. And until next time, we out. We don't have an end card for these long episodes.